over 1,000 generations, the Jedi Knights were guardians of peace, of justice, and the old Republic. Before the Dark Tide. Before the Empire.
Hey, what's up, guys? Christopher Stolle here for Journal of the Jedi. I just wanted to come on real quick and give a little intro real quick because we are going to be joined by the guys from Weeby Geeks, or Wookiee Radio if you prefer, talking about the Clone Wars, the future of Star Wars, and of course many other pieces of Star Wars news that have been announcing and been rumored throughout the time. So this one's going to be an extra long episode. So I just wanted to come on here real quick, give a quick intro, and just let you know what you're in for. Guys, enjoy the show. Because I'm gonna grab video since we're actually videoing.
Ah.
There we go. What is up? Welcome to Journal of the Jedi. With me, I'm joined by the three blind mice of Wookiee Radio, or would it be three blind Wookiees, or maybe even either way.
We tend to call ourselves the Smugglers 3, but hey.
I'm the biggest Ewok you're ever going to find.
You were before you shaved.
Well, that's coming back.
That almost felt like take away your man card.
I didn't get rid of all of it. I still had the goatee.
Okay. Why don't you guys go ahead and let the Journal of Jedi listeners know who you are. Mike, we'll start with you.
I'm Mike. I'm the, I guess, the ringleader of this whole crazy mess that we call Wookiee Radio.
Next.
I'm Ken.
Right? That was a long introduction there.
I know. I'm the wordy one.
I guess that would make me Derrick then, wouldn't it?
He's the wordy one.
That's what they say.
Or, as my friends like to call me, Derrick.
Well, which one do you prefer, Derrick or Derrick?
I can go either way.
All right, cool. All right, guys.
I didn't mean that the way it sounded.
So, anyway, those familiar with Journal of the Jedi, it really is kind of a mismatched Star Wars show about Star Wars, and then that's what we talk about. But the reason this particular episode, and I wanted to bring the guys from the Wookiee Radio on, is I had the distinct honor and pleasure of coming on and being on the Wookiee Radio podcast, and we were discussing the Clone Wars. And it led into a very good conversation that unfortunately we just couldn't get into on Wookiee Radio. And I really wanted to dig into it, is what is the future of Star Wars? The question was put out there, would animation be the best course of action going forward? And I'm going to pose that question right here and now.
Who wants to go first?
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
I don't think animation should be
solely animation. I don't think that's the way to go.
Well, I think it's already being proved that it's not going to go solely animated with everything, because we got season 2 of
right,
Mandalorian
especially with
coming,
like the Mandalorian
and it's
the Witch.
And it's our. Are we going to start the new rumors on that?
Oh, so we'll get on all that.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute.
But I mean, Mandalorian's supposed to go. I mean, it's already slated for 3 seasons. It's already been approved for season 3, and they were talking going potentially 5 seasons. We got the Obi-Wan series coming. We got Cassian Andor series coming. And of course, both of those are going to be live action.
Mm-hmm.
Will we see another
talks of spin-offs from Mandalorian?
Yeah.
There's already talks of a new animated series coming anyway. That may be a sequel to Rebels.
Well, one of the spin-off rumors I hear, I don't know how true it is, but one of the spin-off rumors I hear is the reason they brought Rosario Dawson in as Ahsoka is because they're intending to do a live action Ahsoka, which I guess would spin off of Mandalorian, if I've heard my rumors correctly.
Well,
And actually, with other rumors that came out today, possibly that could be because you'd think the big rumor that dropped today with Slash Film supposedly had multiple sources confirmed it that Katie Sackhoff has been hired to play Bo-Katan in Mandalorian. So it's like that could very easily fit into what we saw Ahsoka at the end of Rebels working with Sabine. But also, I hadn't even thought about this. Remember, in season 1 of Rebels, Bo-Katan was the last one we saw with the Darksaber, which we see Moff Gideon has in the end of Mandalorian season 1.
yeah,
So
but
that's
season,
connection
that
there.
was season 4 that she has that.
That
That
was
she's
season
given
2.
that. Yeah, season
Well, either
4.
way, at the end of
Sabine,
Rebels,
well,
Slash saw-
Sabine has it in either 2 or 3 and gives it to Bo in season 4.
yeah. Which actually
But-
brings your Clone Wars, the end of Clone Wars, where they're talking about the Siege of Mandalore. That's not the final Siege of Mandalore.
No.
Right.
Because by the time we get to the Mandalorians are done. There is no more Mandalore, as far as we can tell. It looks like they're a race almost as extinct as the Jedi. Not quite, but almost. And then, obviously, at the end of Clone Wars, we're not there because we have an active Mandalore during Rebels at the time of A New Hope.
Right.
So yeah, the Siege has to
Final
have
Siege is sometime after that.
Hope and Jedi, or well, whenever Mandalorian takes place like what 2 years after Jedi.
It's 2-5
years.
somewhere in there, yeah.
3 years.
About
to
a
five.
2-year
It was
span.
3. I believe it was 3 years, yeah.
Yes, we'll give it a 10. There's a 10-year span in there that's somewhere in there. The Mandalorian people and culture are totally wiped off the face of the galaxy, just about.
Well, I guess let me amend the question then, because the animation sequence was based on the fact that although yes, I don't discount Mandalorian. Mandalorian is a phenomenal show. You know, God bless Jon Favreau for teaching those at LucasArts now that between him and Dave Filoni what Star Wars is supposed to be. But the question was successful in animation. Obviously, Rebels and the Clone Wars, and Clone Wars Season 7 has absolutely proven that Star Wars is not dead. But, let me rephrase the question then. Maybe the Star Wars now belongs. Would you be fair to say that maybe they need to stop, not concentrate on the big spectacle film because, or especially with the loss of the Rian Johnson and the Benioff and Weiss things, maybe their success is in the streaming service, whether it's animation or serial TV shows.
Well, for me, I think it's not the format they're using. I think the problem we had, the actual movies they've had, is something we've talked about on Wookiee Radio multiple times. I've said a lot of other places. It's lack of singular vision. Because
Okay.
I mean, everybody keeps comparing it to Marvel, and we saw that when Disney bought Lucasfilm, they tried to put a Marvel model on it, and obviously it didn't work. Lucasfilm does not run the same way Marvel runs. I mean, they run as somewhat independent underneath the blanket of Disney, but Lucasfilm, the one thing that Marvel did do correctly since the beginning of their studio that Disney could take a page from is a singular creative influence saying, this is the way you go. This is the through line. Now, you can have whatever directors you want underneath. You still need, in Marvel, it's the Kevin Feige. This buck stops at him and says, okay, this is what the story is. Now, you can do whatever you want to get to that story as long as you get to the right place at the end. Instead of Disney, or not Disney, Lucasfilm put in the story group, which is a great concept, but it ends up becoming making movies by committee, and then you give like a Rian Johnson or a J.J. Abrams or carte blanche to do anything they want, and then you have to make everything fit that. So like when
there wasn't any with the sequels. There wasn't any through line.
Exactly. Well, it was like a relay race. J.J. Abrams made his movie, realized in his head he was not making any more, so he made the movie the way he wanted. He may have had a general concept of where it was going to go from there, but when it looks like, from the script and stuff, that Rian Johnson stepped in, okay, well, I don't want to, I'll take this what I want, and this what I want, the rest of it I'm going to throw out and do the movie I want to do. And then JJ had to come in and try to make it all fit with two totally separate movies that had nothing, that really, they had a through line, a general story idea, but they were done in two totally different ways.
Well, I think one of the major problems with the sequel trilogy, right? One of the major problems with the sequel trilogy was there was no consistency. There was no overarching story that no matter what story you tell, it's got to reach a point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that was one of the major problems that and it's a shame that it happened to the Skywalker saga, since that's, you know, whether it's prequels or original trilogy, that's the story we all as Star Wars fans automatically cling to more than anything else.
Yeah.
You know, is the gospel is the saga. So with 7, 8, and 9 being part of the gospel, you kind of screwed up by not having an idea of how you wanted this to actually be.
Yeah.
I mean, the argument
definitely
going to be part of episode 9 was planned and what part of episode 9 was retcon. You know, that's going to be an argument for ages.
Well, another one with it is the difference we've seen in what we've had since The Force Awakens. If you look at it, the difference between the movies and the actual Mandalorian and Clone Wars is the movies were made by guys who were fans of Star Wars and really did what they thought Star Wars should do. Whereas Mandalorian and Clone Wars had the influence of someone that George Lucas told him, this is how Star Wars is done. And George Lucas, everything up to that point, had George Lucas pointing it. So when you get someone like a Dave Filoni in there, you got the next best thing to George Lucas standing there saying, do this.
I've been saying that since day one. Since
that's
Disney,
the difference.
Since Disney bought Lucasfilm and Kathleen Kennedy became the head of Lucasfilm, I have stated that Kathleen Kennedy was a businesswoman. And she needs to stay on that side of the mythos of Star Wars and be a businesswoman. And we should have had from the beginning, like you said, the Marvel model. We should have had Dave Filoni overseeing all canon and story arc of Star Wars. And I think
if Dave doesn't want to do it, that's fine.
But at this point in time, if you're going to do it as a team and make creative under the guidance of Filoni and Favreau.
Yeah.
Or
that's the thing about the Mandalorian.
Go ahead, Derek.
The Mandalorian, ultimately, Jon Favreau was kind of running the whole show, and I think that's what the whole, like we're saying, that's what all of Star Wars needs right now, is just somebody focusing on everything. And you can have your groups doing the movies or the shows or the cartoons, but you need somebody pulling it all together.
I mean, a singular voice, not a whole committee of people saying, okay, let's hire these people, let's hire these people, and that it hasn't worked.
I mean, right now we get that with the story itself, with Story Group. That's under the head of Pablo Hidalgo. Now, of course, he's got other people working with him, so it's not just him. But they're the ones making sure that canon and the storylines are consistent from this, from the day Story Group was created on.
Right. Yeah, but it looks like he has very limited power, it looks like, the Story Group in general.
Yeah, because somebody needed to rein in the films more and keep it all together.
Now, even with all this, I found that I enjoyed everything we've had up to now. There's nothing that I can say is not, I don't like it because it's not Star Wars. It still feels like Star Wars to me. Even The Last Jedi, I enjoy it. We've talked multiple times and did our reviews of The Last Jedi. For me, it was not the worst Star Wars film ever.
Nope.
Nope.
I like The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
I like all
It
but
did not
30,
feel like it fit with what was there.
I like all but 30 minutes of Last Jedi. I could have done without the whole entire Canto Bight story arc. Quite honestly, if you cut that out, I think Last Jedi would be a perfect movie, damn near perfect movie.
And the great thing is, this Canto Bight
Well,
Star Wars. It may not have fit for that story they were telling, but that is a Star Wars story.
but it is Star Wars, yeah. I might have cut out the Leia Mary Poppins scene, but
Well, George did some strange things too. So,
And I'm the
yes, he did.
I'm the same way with Rise of Skywalker. My two biggest complaints with Rise of
Yeah.
Skywalker is that it did feel like throwing the Emperor into it, even as the main baddie of this sequel too, or this trilogy too. Felt like it was just instead of something that should have been encompassed from the beginning, from Force Awakens, some shadow of Palpatine. So I felt that was rushed. The other thing, everything that was there was fine for me, but they should have added an extra hour to this movie because it did feel like everything was cut together to try to reach that goal line very quickly. And I feel some of the personal times and the really the punch of the scenes from the way it was edited to get there.
yeah. Well, the problem is, very few times has a 3-hour movie been successful at anything. Even some of the one of the most successful movie series of all time, where every one of them was over 3 hours, still had it still gets complaints about that now. The Lord of the Rings trilogy, all of those movies are over 3 hours, and it just. I love those movies, but it takes forever to watch them.
Well, the books were that way too. But if I'm going to point at a movie that was over 3 hours long, that is an absolute masterpiece that nobody who is a fan of this movie bitches about, I would point to like Gone with the Wind.
See, I've not seen it.
But we're talking a different time period, though, too.
Yeah, it's a totally different type of film, too.
Back in the day, going to see Gone with the Wind, that was the family outing.
Right.
Because that was still pre-TV. And you got dressed up to go see films like that. You try and do Gone with the Wind now, or re-release it now in the theaters. Only ones truly going to it are your film buffs who absolutely enjoy it. Other than that, most of your movie-going audience, think about it. Avengers Endgame was pushing it for a lot of people.
Yeah. Just think, you sit there with that giant bucket of popcorn and you're like 10,000 gallon bucket or thing of pop and sit there through a 3-hour movie or a 3.5-hour movie. Tell me you're going to sit there the whole time.
Well, if you think about it from back in the day, those types of films, like Mike was saying, those types of films were events, but they also did something that they used to do for like live theater, and they would stop the movie for intermission so people could go relinquish that gallons of pop and pop and come back and not miss anything in the film. I think if we
refill it.
And especially with somebody like George Lucas would probably appreciate this, even though I know he's not involved with the franchise anymore. If you had made Rise of Skywalker 3.5 hours instead of 2.5 hours, and you added an intermission, I think George would have really appreciated that, because it would have been a callback to what he designed Star Wars to be: episodic serials, old-timey style movies, and that, but basically a Western. An epic Western. So I still stand by what I say. Just add an intermission so people can stretch their legs real quick, but still add that hour of content in to really flesh out the story you're trying to tell.
Yeah.
I think that would have saved Skywalker from a lot of the criticism that it took.
Well,
yeah.
As we're retconning, changing things, is like if you go back and actually put that singular through line through for the 3 movies, you don't need that 3-hour last movie.
True.
Because you'd have set it up, it would have been set up in a totally different way. It would have actually been set up to wrap everything up and knowing where you're going to end at as you're making the 7 and 8. Knowing that that's where 9's going to be, so we don't want to add anything new or any too much new because we know we got to wrap that up plus everything else.
But,
So I mean, but looking forward, if you look at what has come out since then, since Rise of Skywalker, we get Mandalorian was before that, but if you look at the Mandalorian coming out, Clone Wars season 7. And look at what's coming in the future from here, because we're going back into Mandalorian. It looks like Star Wars is going in the right direction now, hopefully. Now, they're still announcing stuff 7 years before it's going to happen, but I think that's the problem with announcing everything that early. When a creator or someone leaves the project, it becomes huge news. If you don't make an announcement until you're ready to go in front of cameras... Then, I mean, Hollywood doesn't work that way now. But if we don't know about it until they're ready to
so much can change.
Exactly. With all these other changes that normally happen to all movies, doesn't become huge news and a big negative because, 15 people have dropped off of this movie. That's normal. But usually it's not covered this far ahead.
Right.
Well, I mean, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, let's go prime example, Benioff and Weiss.
I'm still disappointed at that because I know they were giving us Knights of the Old Republic.
I know, right?
Actually,
you don't hire the guys who did Game of Thrones and did shows episodes like the Battle of the Bastards and not give them a platform like Old Republic.
Yeah, I don't know if that or if I remember right, it was with them that it was announced that the first time we ever heard the term High Republic.
True.
I think that this whole publishing initiative was going to be part of where their movies were at. And their movie was going to tie into this High Republic that we're getting all this publishing stuff with also. I think it was a whole marketing thing together, but when theirs fell off, the publishing kept going. And then they made the big announcement that, hey, the High Republic, and then now we know what it is. I think their movies were going to be part of that.
It's a good possibility. I mean, I'm also really still heartbroken. I know I'll catch backlash from Star Wars fans for this. I'm still heartbroken we didn't get to take a look at a brand new galaxy in Rian Johnson's trilogy.
Yeah.
I am too. I'm
forward to seeing the Star Wars universe beyond the Outer Rim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know if we need to see that yet, because there is so much of the galaxy we've not seen that in the galaxy we're in.
True.
If you think with the movies, with the 11 movies we've had, actual for feature-length theatrical films.
I think I agree with Anthony on Wookiee Radio. I'll say 12. We got to throw 12 there.
But if you talk about just the saga we have, what we've seen on screen and on TV so far, that's a very, very small amount of one time and area of the galaxy. Because if you look at even just the Skywalker saga, it feels like a very small galaxy. Because you got a core, maybe 30 characters that you follow total over the entire 9-film saga over, 100 years?
Right. Give or
That's very small in a galaxy of billions and trillions of people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a fair assessment, and I do know, like, one of the things that people complained about in the sequel trilogy, which is one of the things I actually disagree with, was the lack of familiar planets. Like, I know there was a release of the original script for Episode 9 when it was supposed to be Duel of the Fates, where things were supposed to happen on Coruscant, and people were very disappointed that we didn't visit Coruscant, or, we only got a glimpse of Tatooine.
Right.
To me, I'm the opposite. I was glad we were seeing new worlds. I was glad we were opening up more possibilities of Star Wars.
I agree.
Back to Hoth and Endor and, Tatooine, and that's it. Yavin 4. But, those were things that always that always sat with me, and I'm like I said, I'm right there with you. I mean, for all the complaints that I could say about the quote unquote Disney era of Star Wars, they feel like minor to me because I do enjoy the films that we have gotten, just like I enjoy the content we have gotten. I think the only thing that we've gotten from the quote unquote Disney era Star Wars that I absolutely I even refuse to consider canon is Resistance.
See, but if you watch, Resistance does fit in there, but it's one of those stories. Remember, this is a galaxy of millions and billions of people. That this is just another story that happens to connect to what's going on. It doesn't have any effect on what's going on, but it is another story in this universe. That is a Star Wars.
I didn't love Resistance, but I still would consider it canon.
Yeah, and also we are not the target audience at all for that show.
No, we're not.
That's for sure.
Now, here's the funny thing. I have someone in my household who is the target audience, and it didn't keep her interest.
Yeah.
Well, there's a topic we could hit. What made Resistance fail? Was it the fact that it was too kiddish? Was it the animation style? Was it the fact that it strayed a little too far away from connecting into the main story in some way? I mean, it's still connected, but just barely. Like, what in your opinion caused that show to not connect with the audience?
I think if it was being meant for kids my daughter's age, which when it came out, she was 8 or 9, going 7 to 8, 8 to 9. I think the issue was the time of day on Sunday it was released. It was released at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
You want that's your target audience. You want that middle of the day, like 5, 6 o'clock on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Kids could watch that in prime time or during dinner on a Sunday, not after they've gone to bed.
Okay.
And I think for those of us or the older audience, it was a little too goofy at times, a little too kid oriented.
Yeah. I think they lead to... Go ahead, Derek.
You can have a kid show and not have it be too... the only word I could think of is goofy. There were sometimes it was just a little too goofy.
That's where I am. I mean, if I had the two complaints about Resistance, it was the animation style. It felt too flash player-ish. You know, a little too flash player-ish, like something you would see in a phone game type animation. And the fact that it was a little too childish with its humor. Especially that green face character. I can't remember his name.
Nico.
Yeah. Nico rubbed me the wrong way every episode.
See, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I think another thing that actually went towards this was, I think by them putting it on at 10 o'clock at night, they were leaning a lot farther into DVRing and people or kids watching it streaming. They're like, oh, the target audience will catch it streaming or on replays. It's like that, but the thing is, you're measuring metrics on the first play.
Right. Yeah.
And also, the problem is when you're putting it on at 10 o'clock at night. If I remember, this started. When were they running these seasons? Do you remember? Was it in the spring or fall?
First one was
fall.
Well, you got to think you're running at 10
through the winter.
You're going, huh? But well, in the fall on a Sunday night at 10, you're running it against Sunday Night Football, and the adult. If you don't catch those adults quick, they're going to watch football and watch it, and maybe come back to Star Wars later. And kids, yes, watch it at anytime you put it on, but most of the kids are going to bed to go to school the next day.
Season 1 started October 7th, 2018.
Okay, so you got your Sunday night, and it's one game running. So everybody's watching that one game.
Season 2, October 6th, 2019.
I think when it was less, when there were the times when it was less goofy, it was actually kind of decent.
Yeah.
They did some good stuff in there, but
Yeah,
I think we went farther with it.
I liked the episode. I did like the episodes with it where they stepped off that platform. Like what popped into my head where Poe picked up Kasuto, and they decided to go check into a First Order asteroid base that was supposed to be a
that's
base.
right. Yeah,
that's
that was a good one. Yeah,
That
Clone
was
Wars
the
movie,
base.
if I remember right. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the start of the Bad Batch series.
Yeah, episodes like that I really liked. Were actually connected to what we're supposed to be seeing in this series. The episodes I hated was just the daily life of racing platform that really, as a Star Wars fan, I didn't care about.
Yeah.
It had no bearing to, and I think part of its fault is me, yes, because like Ken was saying, it was another story in the Star Wars universe. But as much as that's my fault for not embracing what it was, I think it was a failure on Disney Channel. That was the station it was on, the Disney Channel, right?
Disney XD.
An XD.
No. Rebel Protection.
No, you're right. Disney Channel. Yeah. It was Disney Channel.
This was XD also.
Yeah, it was Disney Channel.
But their failure was the fact that you placed this show in the one space that all Star Wars fans are wanting more information from, and that's the years between Jedi and Force Awakens.
Right.
I wouldn't even say in that space. I would say because this happens like weeks before The Force Awakens. So this is a lead up to Force Awakens. It's not a gap filler. And that's what everybody, I think, was looking for, was something in the middle there that's going to say what's going on. This, basically, once you see
that's what I was looking for.
Happen here.
Well, I think that's what I'm saying. I think that was part of its failure as well, is that a lot of fans, myself included, and Derrick, as he admitted, I think we were looking for it to be more than what they were looking to make it be.
Yeah.
Right.
Is we wanted to get more lore of the 30 years between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens.
That's because they had set us up for that. If you watch Clone Wars and Rebels, you're expecting that level of storytelling, and this was not designed to do that.
And I'm still waiting for that to find out
We
more.
were getting.
I mean, we get glimpses in
They've
books.
built it and all this.
I mean, we get glimpses in books and some comics and all that, which is great. But I mean, I really want the story, and I want to watch the story. I want to feel the Star Wars experience in the story. You know, give me Luke training Leia. Make it a cartoon. I know you can't get Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill and time frame them back like that small scene you did in Rise of Skywalker, but you can do that with animation.
Mm-hmm.
Give me that story. You know what I mean? Give me the story of the downfall of Ben Solo's turn to the dark side. You know?
Yes.
Give me those stories. I want to see them.
Yeah.
You know what's another idea is taking that idea of Luke. Now we know after Return of the Jedi, at some point, because in order to train Jedi, he's got to get more information. So he's out there searching for Jedi texts and all the give me a Mike is all about an Afra story, but take the idea of your Afra story with an Indiana Jones type character, but make that Luke looking for the secrets of the Jedi.
I'd be down with that.
That would be awesome.
For the Jedi.
Especially since I don't like Afra, I'd be absolutely down for that.
Well, who's to say after Returning the Jedi, assuming Afra survives, because we don't know how far she survives, because all we know she has survived the events. She has survived through the events of Empire Strikes Back, because the new series picks up after Empire Strikes Back, like everything else in the Star Wars comics.
Right.
Star Wars Invader takes place after the events of Empire. If she survives everything through the events of Return of the Jedi, then maybe that would be a great animated series or a great live action where maybe we do get a Mark Hamill, even though he says he's hung up his lightsaber. Who's to say he doesn't provide the voice talent for a CG hologram look of him as the two of them are scouring the galaxy for these lost texts.
See, you bring up a very good point. If they were to do an animated series or something where Luke made an appearance, I just had a James Earl Jones moment. Like, who else could you get to voice Luke other than Mark Hamill? Like, like even again, I know not every rendition of Darth Vader has been James Earl Jones, but I could tell the difference. Like in the Force video games, for example, that's not James Earl Jones doing Vader's voice, and although it wasn't bad, I knew it wasn't. So could anybody even really pull off a rendition of Luke Skywalker, be it a Force flashback or an animated cartoon dealing with Luke after Return of the Jedi, and not be voiced by Mark Hamill?
I don't think that would be a problem. Go back to the Clone Wars. When you first saw the Clone Wars movie, and you hear Anakin and Obi-Wan and Mace Windu and Yoda, that's not the voices you've ever heard.
Well,
it didn't take long to drop in and say, okay, that still sounds like these characters now.
Well, Mace
You
Windu
can pass that pretty quick if it's done correctly.
That's not fair. Mace Windu was voiced by Samuel L. Jackson in the Clone Wars.
Just in the movie, not in the series.
The series, no.
Yeah.
But all the rest of the characters were brand new voices,
Right.
including Tom Kane's Yoda. Tom Kane's Yoda is amazing. It's not what Frank Oz did with Yoda, but it's still amazing.
No, it was amazing, but I think if I'm going to sing the praises of anybody who did like spot on interpretations of live action characters that we knew, like first off, you got to give it to Sam Witwer. Not even for Maul. Maul was great, but his Emperor impersonation was notch. And then of course we're going to sing praises to anybody. It's James Arnold Taylor and his Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Yeah, but listen to it. It's not. He's not. He used Ewan McGregor and mixed it with some Alec Guinness and some other things. But that's what I'm saying. There are some of the voice talent out there that are mimics that are already mimicking. There's probably 3 or 4 guys out there that already do Mark Hamill when Mark can't do something, and they sound exactly like him. James Arnold Taylor. Have you ever heard him do Michael J. Fox or David Spade or he doubles even guys like Jack Sparrow,
Johnny Depp.
Johnny Depp. When Johnny Depp can't do ADR, he'll come in and you'll see Johnny Depp on screen and think you're hearing him. No, you're hearing James.
Really?
Jay Baruchel. James has done just about as much of the dragon stuff as Jay Baruchel has, and you can't tell the difference. There are mimics out there that sound exactly like the original, or it's so close that your ear can't tell the difference. So yeah, if you can't get I almost don't want someone that's going to sound just like the original characters. Let them take the character, the character that's in the voice, and give it their own little bit of a spin to it, but still keep it in that character. That's where a good voice director comes in.
Mm.
All right. Well, let's change directions here a little bit. Like we touched on it a little bit in the beginning here. We were talking about some of the rumors and speculations that were coming out. Like obviously we were talking about like Bo-Katan and all. I wanted to touch base on this one. I cannot remember the actor's real name, so forgive me, fans. But Jango Fett being cast into Mandalorian. Of course, the rumor is that he's going to be Boba Fett. But now there's
Tiamu Morrison.
Yeah, Tamir Morrison.
Yeah, tempura chicken.
And now rumors having that maybe it won't be Boba Fett, it will be Rex. I wanted to get your guys' take on it. Do you think
Well,
Boba
actually,
Fett, or do you think completely different?
I've also read that he's playing 2 parts, so he could actually be playing both, allegedly.
Well,
Yeah.
we know pretty much Rex made it to Return of the Jedi, and he's a really old guy.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's been, I mean, it's retconned now, but it's basically we know he was on Endor.
Right.
Okay. And this is only 3 to 5 years after that. As long as saying he survived Endor, that would not be out of the possibility. And with his relationship with Ahsoka already, if we have Ahsoka on the series, it makes sense that if she's got a crew, not just her, if she's got other people with her, Rex would most definitely be working with her probably still.
Okay, but I'm gonna take this stance. This is all speculation.
Yeah.
This is all rumor. Nothing in this is official. Anytime, all the stories that broke today about Katie Sackhoff reprising Bo-Katan live action. All the sources, all the slash films, they quoted many sources have said this. Those many sources are still only quoting speculation from slash film.
Yeah.
There is no confirmation from Lucasfilm or Sackhoff's management team. Same thing with Rosario Dawson. She had said she would love to do it, but no one has officially said she is doing it.
Actually, isn't that actually
it was confirmed?
No,
I thought
she still has denied it.
because even Collider and Schmoes Knows Network has been stating that they usually do not run with rumors.
Yeah, that's why even like Slash Film usually, that's the only rumors I usually talk about are the ones that are from or places that are about 90% on accuracy.
Right.
There's plenty of sites I won't run with the rumors on at all because they sniff something and they'll print anything they want. But usually Slash Film's pretty accurate. I mean, yes, it's still a rumor and stuff could change because they're in post-production now, but
well, the thing is even with rumors, like sometimes, like for myself, because I run so many different podcasts and do things that have conversations about media in general. When it's rumor, I try to make sure that people understand right off the bat it's rumor. This is not.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun to discuss, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's true. But I mean, I won't go out of my way to even placate something that was like released by You'veGotThisCovered.com. You know, they're totally full of shit. You know what I mean? And because of that factor, I don't want that associated with my shows. But I mean, like if something like Slash Films or comicbook.com, just for example, 9 times out of 10, I could take it as almost gospel, but until I hear from StarWarsNews.net, StarWars.com, Lucasfilm Limited, or usually if I start seeing it on podcasts like John Campea, Collider, or Schmoes No Network, that's when it's like, okay, this has legitimacy behind it.
Yeah. Well, actually, what's interesting, a lot of times you'll get the confirmations out of nowhere in a lot of the trade publications. The Hollywood Reporter, Variety, Deadline.
True. Very true.
Which is funny because the geeks aren't always reading those ones.
I thought Mike was getting ready to look up to see, so I imagine he's ready to report.
Well, yeah. See, everything I'm still seeing, there is no confirmation from her. The closest you get is Rosario Dawson tweeted, "Tell them #Ahsoka lives," and that was January 12th of 2020. Well, who's to say that doesn't have anything to? I mean, that's pre. Okay, maybe that's around the time they were doing some filming. I don't remember of Mandalorian.
No, they wrapped it at the end of February, so she would have actually been filming at that point.
But who's to say it's not because she saw the same trailers as everyone else for Clone Wars Season 2?
Yes, but also on the other hand, look at Ewan McGregor, who for a long time couldn't admit that he was doing Obi-Wan again.
Yeah,
because he had to keep it a secret.
Yeah,
right.
Well, one of the tells though I think is also that if it was not happening at all, she'd have been all over everybody would have been all over. No, this is not happening. Usually, if their radio silence means they can't say anything one way or the other. So something is happening somewhere.
That's
Even if
right.
they're just talking, there's something going on. Because if she was not at all involved in anything, she would just say straight up, "No, I'm not doing it."
But it could be something entirely different than what everybody's suspecting.
Exactly. It may not be Ahsoka, but she's involved somehow in the process.
Well, continuing on, Variety After Show had her on Aprilish.
All right.
And, they asked her about it. And they said, the story says she's tight-lipped on joining the Disney Plus series. They'll credited fans for fueling the momentum of her casting. That's not confirmed yet, but when it happens, I'll be very happy. And I'm very excited for that to be confirmed at some point, she added. Adding, it would be a 1,000,001% because of the fans. Still doesn't mean, and even with that, she's still not necessarily confirming.
But she's not denying either.
But she's not denying.
She's not denying it.
And Variety would not have asked the question if they didn't have, being Variety and who they are, would not have asked the question if they didn't know 100% that this is going to happen.
Right.
Yeah, but we're talking a month and a half after the supposed announcement that she was doing it.
Well,
you got to remember,
they're probably trying to keep quiet and protected what she's going to look like and what she's going to sound like as Ahsoka, probably for storyline reasons.
Yeah,
we mentioned Ahsoka that nobody was expecting to see, somebody who's like really beat up and not as clean, fresh face as we saw at the end of Rebels, for example. You know what I mean? So they may be trying to protect that surprise in the show.
Yeah.
With that being said, one of the things that lands me so hard with her, like, I'm not confirming this, but they're not denying either, is turning around saying, well, I can't confirm this yet, but when I can confirm this, it will be completely for the fans.
Yeah.
How would you say that if it isn't already, if you aren't actually confirming?
That, and one of the reasons she can't confirm it is because she's got the Disney assassins and bomb in her neck, like in Suicide Squad, that with their finger on the button, because the marketing team is the only one allowed to reveal it. And it's up to them when they decide to reveal this. And Mike, you know the size of the marketing team and the Suicide Squads from Disney, what they can do.
Oh yeah.
So once you sign that paper, they own your life and everything that comes out of your mouth until they don't.
When I get an email from a Disney Imagineer saying, "Hey, I really like your Marvel podcast," you first get that, "Oh, that's cool." Next thought in head, "Oh shit, there goes the show."
I was about to say
now
line, but we got to discuss that last episode where you speculated about this, that, and the other, and you're not allowed to talk about that.
Yeah. Oh,
now I want to go. I'll go a different direction that some people might not agree with on a whole different topic here, and I'll say that I for one, do not want to see Boba Fett in The Mandalorian.
100%. 100% agree. Boba Fett died in the Sarlacc pit.
Mm-hmm.
Leave him alone. I'm sorry.
We don't need Boba Fett, and I think it'll just get in the way having him in there.
I think that would be 120,000% fan service to bring Boba Fett into anything.
Oh yeah, totally.
Overrated character. He had 5 lines in the movie. One of them was "ah," and he got beat by a blind guy with a. He's not that great. Let him go. If you want to bring him back, clone Django. Like I know the clones were all Django's, but I mean, give me a new Django Fett, because at least Django.
I think Boba Fett was cool when he was the only one, But now that we have more Mandalorians, who needs Boba Fett?
Well, that's the thing. When you really break it down, since they brought us the real Mandalorians, Boba Fett was a wannabe. He was a poser. He
Yeah.
was a Mandalorian. I mean,
Especially
Django,
now what the modern Mandalorians are.
yeah. Even Django wasn't a Mandalorian. He was a bounty hunter in Mandalorian armor.
Mm.
He wasn't from Mandalore. I don't think. I mean,
No, that's according to George Lucas. That was his idea the whole time. That Django was. He liked to think of it as Django was just a guy who found the armor.
yeah, that's what I thought I heard before. So even Django's not a Mandalorian.
I guess Django and Boba. Well, Boba doesn't know any better because it's how he was raised. But Django is the Star Wars equivalent of stolen valor.
Pretty
He
much.
found the armor, he took it, and then claimed he was
Mm-hmm.
Mandalorian.
But you get if you look at it from the other way to where we get to in the Mandalorian series, he may not have been. We've talked about this multiple times, talking about the Mandalorian series. How Django may not have been genetically a Mandalorian, but that doesn't mean he wasn't Mandalorian by the current definition, where Mandalorian is almost
True.
more like a religion than a race.
True, they
Right.
kind
True.
of breed instead of a race of people from Mandalore.
So he may have lived his life by the creed of whatever the old warrior ways of the Mandalorians, and not actually racially and genetically been Mandalorian.
Mm.
We don't know because we only see Django for maybe 2 hours of his entire life.
Well, to be fair, it's pretty telltale. He didn't even follow the ideals of the Mandalorians. Look at him. Look at when Obi-Wan met him at the apartment, and his armor's spewed in the closet somewhere. He's just
Yeah.
walking in a blue shirt, and we all know for Mandalorians, like, your armor's your life. You know what I mean?
Well, that's
Even-
where it's when we see it. That's where it's like when we see it in the series. If you watch any of the Mandalorian stuff we see before that, which mainly is Clone Wars and Rebels.
right.
If you look at any of that, none of those edicts and way in the Warriors' ways, and this is the way. None of that was created yet. Either that, or it was a totally different offshoot.
Right.
Is what we're dealing with in Mandalorian. Maybe that was where Death Watch started, was with what these guys are feeling, and eventually became Death Watch. You know,
Maybe.
we don't know.
I would have gone the other way. I think the modern Mandalorian and the ideals of the Mandalorian, this is the way, and everything else, I would almost say was born more from the philosophies and ideologies of Death Watch than the original Mandalores.
It's possible. That's possible also. Like I said, we don't know enough. What we do know about Mandalorian culture as a people and as the planet Mandalore is what we see in Clone Wars and Rebels.
Right.
And we know they were trying to get rid of their warriors' ways, but we have no idea what those ways were.
Mm.
They were trying to become pacifist because Duchess Satine wanted to bring in the pacifism and bring peace to to their empire or whatever I forget what the way they called it, but you understand, you know what I'm saying. She was
Right.
trying to bring peace to her people, which they had always been warlike. So it's like, but we don't know anything about what drove that.
No, but that's where Death Watch came from, because we saw the start of Death Watch in Clone Wars during her, because that's what brought Obi-Wan to Mandalore, back to Mandalore, was
Mhm.
creation of Death Watch.
Exactly, and that's what I mean. Like when I rewatched Clone Wars and stuff, and was brought back to the ideals of Death Watch, and then I watched the Mandalorian, I get more of that type of similarity. I think the modern day Mandalorian is based more on the ideals of the ancient, I guess at that point, ancient Death Watch ideals.
Yeah.
Well, it makes you wonder too. I mean, okay, Knights of the Old Republic was not canon, or is not canon, but you had the Mandalorian War during that. Okay, who's to say that the Mandalorian War isn't wasn't a religion thing, quote unquote, like the Jedi were considered, and then they went and created the planet of Mandalore to be the home world for this religion And then from there, it became, okay, it's not just a religion, it's now a race of people. And then after we see the initial siege of Mandalore during the final arc of Clone Wars. And then we know with the Empire, they're not quite done. And there is that one last siege in which Gideon's there. Because there's no way right now, with what we saw in Clone Wars, that Gideon was in that situation.
If he was, he wasn't a Moff yet.
If he was,
yeah, definitely not.
He was not your typical person in the clone army.
Well, yeah, that or he could have just been a naval officer. Well, no, because everybody that went to the Mandalorian system, well, no, because there was multiple Star Destroyers. Remember, there were multiple cruisers, so he could have been just a naval officer on one of the cruisers. Because we have seen in Star Wars that there were just regular enlisted and officers that were not clones. Your rank and file troopers were all clones.
True.
And many of the officers and the bridge officers and things and the ships were clones also, but there were regular just rank and file crew that had enlisted in the army or in the Navy. So he could have been on one of those, maybe a lieutenant or a commander, and have worked his way up through once it became the Empire and just kept working his way up till he becomes a Moff.
True.
I mean, either way, it raises a great question of I definitely want to know more about Moff Gideon and his backstory, whether he was, like you said, a scripted officer on a Republic cruiser during the Clone Wars, or an up-and-coming officer in the Imperial Navy during the time of the rise of the Empire, or if he was just maybe like a planet influencer who fought his way into power through the Imperial corruption schemes. Either way, I think it would be a fascinating backstory to find out more about this character, and then once you learn all that, learn how he weaseled or found or got his way to the dark saber.
Actually,
it's like he's the new Thrawn.
Yeah, you raise a good point there. If you read the backstory of Tarkin was a governor more than he was a military man. But we've seen that in the Empire, and then from the books and comics and things like that a lot of the higher ups and the people on the admirals could be bought into. Moffs definitely is a position that be granted to you, but if you're high enough up in the Empire doing other things. Even
and Tarkin kind of proved too, if you read Tarkin kind of proved too that you don't, and Rogue One showed it too.
That's where I'm going, is
that Tarkin, you didn't even have to be particularly special within the Empire to gain those statuses. Tarkin was just really good at stealing other people's ideas and bullshitting his way up. I mean, Tarkin was a badass, but like the Death Star, for example, we all know that was Krennic.
Yeah,
you
remember?
But it was Tarkin who took the credit.
Yeah, Krennic. Well, you got to remember, Krennic actually had a military rank, even though all he was a scientific advisor. But he had a military rank. He was never in the military at all. He was just in charge of the Death Star project, so they gave him a rank so he could actually tell the troops what to do.
Right.
You learned that in Catalyst, if I remember right.
So it works out. It works out perfectly that somebody like Gideon, maybe Gideon's not a badass. He's just really good at telling people what they need to hear to further his own position.
But then, if you're giving Death Troopers, you can do a lot.
Yeah, Death Troopers.
Yeah.
So yeah, it would be. That's one of the stories I think from Mandalorian that I'm really looking forward to digging into. Is more into the unknown characters, particularly.
Oh yeah.
I think we'll get that in books and comics after they once they're allowed to start writing stuff and expanding out the backstory of the. I don't know how. I mean, we're gonna get some of Gideon's backstory, but only as much as we need to actually fill out the story of the Mandalorian and the child.
Which, by the way, for people that are listening, No, it is not Yoda. No, it is not Yoda reincarnated. It is just one of Yoda's species. The end. I'm
It
tired
could be Yoda clone.
But it could be a Yoda clone. We even talked about that on the show. We broke down the timeline. That
Why?
clone.
Why would you clone Yoda? Who would clone Yoda?
Well,
Go listen to the Count Dooku Lost Jedi Lost audiobook. It was quite possibly Dooku, not Sifo Dyas, that created the clone army, and he just used Sifo Dyas's name to conceal the fact that he did it, because Sifo Dyas was going nuts.
yeah.
I've always figured that. I always figured that it was Dooku, because how else would he pass himself off as Sifo Dyas to the Geonosians, rather, or no, Kaminoites. Thank you.
Kaminoids.
The Kaminoids. That words. The people of Kamino, to make them believe that he was Sifo Dyas if he hadn't played the role from the beginning. I've always.
Well, it's like, and you ask why clone Yoda, you gotta think the way we talked about this a little bit on our show too when you were there, about what are the difference between the Jedi and the Sith? The Sith are always looking for power, more power. The Sith Master is always looking for the next apprentice, not just the guy he has, because he knows eventually he's gonna have to kill his apprentice and move on to the next one. So why not, knowing Yoda's almost 900 years old and how powerful of a Jedi he is? Imagine if you had him working under you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you already have cloning technology, well, if I clone him, he'll have all the Force abilities and stuff, and I'll get to mold him into whatever I want him to be.
Well, the other catch is too, to see if what material do they want for the clones. Well, who's got access to Yoda and Yoda's genetic material to possibly create a clone? Dooku, because Dooku was Yoda's apprentice. He was his Padawan. So he could very easily had material stashed away somewhere with the thought, well, maybe we could create a new Jedi army and use Yoda as part of it. Let's see how a cloning process could be. Because at the time, Yoda was the greatest Jedi there was.
Okay, wait, I'll take this a step farther.
So when the Kaminoans could not clone in a timely manner the Jedi DNA, then they went with the next material that could be accelerated.
Yeah. Well, I got one even farther. Everybody get out your tinfoil hats, because I guarantee this is wrong. But go to episode 9. What is Palpatine doing there? What has he been sitting on Exegol doing? Building a Sith army.
Of clones.
Now, if you take the strongest Jedi of all time, clone him a couple million times, now you have a clone army of Sith soldiers of possibly the highest force combat ever.
See that you're kind of going where I was going. I was
An army of Sith Yodas.
I was thinking on film that we've seen thus far on film, and you kind of had me with the Dooku thing up until getting the genetic material, because what does Dooku have that would have Yoda's DNA on it?
Well, he lived with Yoda for years.
True, but
He was the Padawan.
on the opposite end of the coin, I started thinking about it. It's like, well, going off of what Ken said here, Palpatine would probably be more likely to do it, because one, he does play with clones, like we said, cloning the Sith Order and stuff like that. But also the fact that he would have access from his Senate battle with Yoda at the end of Revenge of the Sith. Yoda dropped his lightsaber. His genetic material would be right there.
Possibly. Yeah. But like I said, Palpatine is always a master manipulator behind the scenes. Especially since you got to think, we find out in episode 9. Now, this one they did know about when they're making Mandalorian. Now, the Mandalorian, they're looking for the child, and the client is working for the Empire still. That is all 100% that he's an Imperial governor or something for that region.
Right.
We know that behind the scenes, Palpatine is still pulling all the strings.
Right.
This is starting to come together. I think this may actually be what the whole thing with the child was Palpatine was pulling the strings. He wanted to clone Yoda. He had a clone.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to make sure he could do it, and then clone, because when they were making The Mandalorian, episode 9 was already going.
All right.
So of episode 9, this may actually tie into there. I would not be surprised if it does tie into the idea that Palpatine wanted to build a clone army of Sith stormtroopers and Sith an entire army trained in the ways of the Sith.
The dark Jedi. Which let me jump down this rabbit hole a little further with you guys then. What do you think then? Maybe down the line we'll see other Jedi Council members cloned, or at least failed attempts of. Will we see like a Ellen Ripley version of Mace Windu in a jar somewhere at some point?
No, because
I hope not.
If you do it more than once, it becomes predictable. If this is a one-off thing, this is the first time you do it, then you surprise people.
Yeah, but the thing with Mace though was the Emperor threw him out the window.
True, but I was doing that more to make it sense. I mean, like you have like technically, I guess his hand's still there. Mace's hand is still there. You know,
yeah.
You can lop it off right there.
So no, this is the first time I've actually come up with this line of thought here. But dude, that actually, it's all starting to make sense a little bit.
It's making sense, but I will go on disclaimer.
This is tinfoil hat territory.
Yeah, this are we saying in any way, shape, or form that this is canon? We don't even know if we're even close to it. We're probably far off the mark.
But this does hit close to the mark. I'm with the royalty checks.
Yeah, right.
Either that or we'll never hear from you again.
Yeah, one or the other. Remember us seeing those Disney assassins?
I more imagine.
What happened to Ken? I don't know. Just
hey, that was a better idea than what we had. No, but I guess the best way to end this episode would be to hit on the one final piece of conversation that's a bit of a controversy, and it's kind of fitting since we're talking about the baby, and that's the release of the Black Figure series, Baby Yoda, the baby. A lot of people are having issues with the fact that the thing is about the size of a Lego figurine.
That is on scale for Black Series.
And it should be that.
That's what I'm figuring too, but I wanted to get you guys' impression. Do you think that it's fair that they're charging the typical Black Figure price of $20 for?
They're not.
They're charging $15.
$10, $15. But still, for something that's the same size, if not smaller, than your average Yoda figurine for the normal run series.
I think it's fine. If you got the porg set was like $6, and it was 2 tiny itty bitty birds.
Well,
so this is on sale.
The pork set on sale went for $6. Most of the time, it was $8 to $10 as well.
Okay,
I know. I bought like 8 of them.
A regular Black Series figure at $20. The Yoda is just under half that size, and you're paying half the price at $10.
Yeah,
I think you're fine.
And he comes with great accessories.
Yeah. What does it come with? I haven't actually seen like the full collection in the box itself. I've only seen like
I believe he comes with a frog.
You looking it up, Mike?
Yeah. Last place I saw that had it was
GameStop has it.
Did they release him with the baby carriage?
No.
No.
I think that might have offset the difference if you would have had the actual quote-unquote floating baby carriage.
But not in the Black Series. And they made a series of 6 or 8 figurines.
It's the Bounty collection, yeah.
Yeah, and they're selling them in a 2-pack for $15 and there is one in the baby carriage. There's one looks like he's almost swaddled up like the Mandalorian would be carrying him around. There's one with him eating the frog with the head straight up in the air. They are cute.
Mm,
It's like $15 for a 2-pack.
yeah.
Nice.
Have those come out?
Yes.
I
GameStop
wanna
has
get
some, I
those.
noticed the other day.
Best
I
Buy
want to
has
get
them as
those.
well.
Well, guys, we've reached that part of the show where we're going to go ahead and say goodbye to our audience here. But before we do, I want to thank my guests, Wookiee Radio, and I want to give them the opportunity and the spotlight to tell you guys where you can find the shows and where you can get in contact with them. So that way you guys can definitely jump on board and hear their show. It's a phenomenal show, and I don't just say that because they were nice enough to let me be on it once. They actually do.
He
have
lies on his show. He lies on his show too.
It was a very, very entertaining show. It's a great cast of characters. They have some great guests, and they do have some solid topics. You guys will definitely want to check them out. So take it away, guys. The floor is yours.
Go ahead, Mike.
All right. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at Wookiee Radio. Email us at wookie@wookieeradio.net. Website is wookieradio.net.
Do you want all of our personal stuff too for other shows and things?
Sure, if you want to let people know where they can contact you, or maybe other podcasters that might like to collaborate like you and I are doing right now, absolutely.
So, Mike, run down yours, then we can run down ours.
Other shows on Twitter at Weeby Geeks, at Mighty Marvel Geeks, Instagram at Weeby Geeks, at Mighty Marvel Geeks, and then takeeachshow.net for the websites.
Right
You got. Okay, you can find me on Wookiee Radio, obviously, but also my actual home base is Geek Watch One. It's myself, my wife, and our partners, another married couple, and we sit there and talk geek for about an hour and a half once a week. You can find it at geekwatch1.com. All social media, it's geekwatch1 or geekwatch1@gmail.com.
Go. Derek?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at NES of Geek. You can follow my New England Society of Geek podcast at NESOG podcast, and my Keepers of the Fringe podcast is at KOTFR, and that's all on Twitter. And on Instagram, you can find me at NESOG Pod, Keepers of the Fringe, and if you want to have some fun, check out my Instagram, Newman Watches, which is all about my cat trying to kill me.
Watches, I have to remember that. And of course,
Hey, Derek, how many times has he succeeded?
None yet.
Okay.
Not for lack of trying, though.
You mean you're not like Kenny on South Park? Comes back for the next week?
hey, wait a minute. Palpatine live with him?
Yeah.
It's too mid. Good. And of course, guys, thank you very much for joining us here at Journal of the Jedi. If you enjoyed this video in any capacity, hit that thumbs up button, like, share, comment, subscribe. Check out all the other great podcasts of Rebel to Miss Entertainment, and go over to our sister channel, Sounds Dicey Gaming, for all your tabletop and video game needs. And if you prefer your podcast in audio-only format, we got you covered. Check out Rebel to Miss Entertainment on Anchor.fm, Apple, iTunes, Spotify, Pandora, or wherever quality podcasts can be heard. Again, guys, thank you very much for joining me. This has been an absolute blast. I think we got absolutely nothing accomplished, but it was fun getting there.
That's what it's all about.
That's right.
And guys, as always, council adjourned. See you later.
Oh, Judah.